Hey you guys, it's Britt. Today I figured I would jump on and do a little story time for you. I wanted to tell you about the time that I worked for a horrible dermatologist. I had some thoughts along with it, so if you're interested, please keep watching. All right, you guys, so welcome to the first story time on my channel. I want to keep this going, so we'll see how this video does. If you guys like it, I will definitely do more. Obviously, some of the story times I'm going to have to change people's names and stuff so I don't get into trouble with anyone that doesn't want to be talked about on YouTube, but I can definitely sort it out, make it happen. So leave your thoughts down below about story time videos, inserted throughout. I don't know how often I'll do them, but I can definitely incorporate them into my channels. So let's go back in time about 10 years ago. My boyfriend and I were living in a basement. We were renting a basement from a family of friends, and we were really struggling. So this was the point in my life where I had kind of gone up to a real high and then dropped to a real low. And finding him was one of the best things that has ever happened to me in my life. But in the beginning of our relationship, we really did struggle financially. I don't want to get emotional. To see where we're at today is just so amazing for so many reasons. But when you go through really hard times with someone, you form this friendship on top of your relationship, and it just really makes you feel invincible. Like nothing can ever, get you guys off track again. Like you've been through, the trenches together. This time in my life, we were literally it was like ramen noodle style. We were struggling. I didn't have a car, so I was relying on public transit to get me to wherever it is that I was working. And I had a job really close to where we were living, but things didn't work out there and I left and I started looking for jobs on Craigslist. Came across some really weird ones, but I came across this position that was for a receptionist at a dermatology office. And if I were to drive to this office, it would have probably been about 40 minutes, 45 minutes with moderate traffic. But with the public transit being my form of transportation back then, it took about an hour and a half to sometimes 2 hours, depending on traffic, if the trains were on time, because it involved taking a train and a bus. So that was a long commute for not very much money, but I was super grateful. I felt like, maybe this could be the next path that I go on as far as my career and what I'm gonna do. Dermatology always interests me, not only because of my background with working for MAC Cosmetics and having a love for all things beauty and skincare, but I figured that maybe this could be another avenue to stay in the beauty industry, but be making a little bit more money and kind of nail down a more permanent position. Start out as a receptionist, maybe work up to office manager, and who knows where it could go from there. So already when I saw the listing, I was thinking through all these scenarios. So I submit my resume. I'm not kidding you. I got a call within 10 minutes. It was like I submitted my resume. They immediately called me because someone was monitoring that email address. So I did like a 5 or 10 minute little questionnaire over the phone with the lady that called me, and I got called in for the interview. For the interview, I didn't take public transit. My boyfriend took me, and it was great. Things went great. I met the doctor. She seemed very nice. The situation back then was she didn't have her own office. She was actually in a family medicine office subleasing 2 exam rooms and an office. So it was a little interesting, but I would be sharing space with her office, and then she would have the 2 exam rooms to see patients in. She was just getting on her feet, and I thought that it was a cool opportunity. I didn't really care that I didn't have my own desk. Who cares? I'm just scheduling patients, answering questions over the phone. So it wasn't a big deal for me to have my own desk. Who cares? So I did the interview and I got the job offer the same day. It was very quick. So in between her medical assistant, I figured that out, calling me right after I submitted the resume, scheduling it, things were moving very quickly. So I could tell that they definitely had a need for the receptionist, because what I gathered later was that the medical assistant was the one doing the scheduling, calling in prescription refills, helping the doctor with procedures, all of the things she was doing. So they desperately needed me to come in. I started very quickly. I was told after I was hired that she would be moving into her own office space soon. I didn't know what soon was, but I was, down to work until then, and we'll figure it out. I did ask about the location, and she did say that it would be very close. In fact, it was within walking distance from the office that she was at currently. Let's see, we stay in that office for almost a year, and she builds out this other office space. And I went from feeling like I was working for a very humble doctor to learning that this was only a humble doctor because she had no choice at that time. Once the office build out started, I saw this side to her that was very much materialistic, labels. I would see her come in on her days off, and obviously I would see a different side to her when she's dressed casually. She was one of those Lululemon, the Gucci handbag, the Louis Vuitton handbag, and I was like, oh, okay, like, this is interesting. But she was being nice to me and she was giving me a paycheck. So aside from having a very, very difficult commute, I was getting paid, and that's, all that I could hope for at that time. Side note, she was not offering me health insurance because she was just got up and running. So yes, I was getting paid, but there were no other benefits along with the paycheck at all. The office build out starts. I start to see this other side of her, and I'm not really too crazy about it, but I've already signed up for this and I don't want to look for another job right now. So let's just see where this goes. About 4 months into working for her, remember, I didn't have any health insurance. I had a toothache, and her husband is a dentist. Great. So she says, I realize that I don't give you guys health insurance or dental insurance, but you clearly need to be seen by a dentist. So go downtown and go see my husband. He'll take care of you. Don't worry about the bill. It's all good. So I go and see him. He helps me out. Like, he does a filling and whatever. So we're good. And in my mind, no worries about the bill. You're not providing me with dental insurance. So in my mind, that was null and void, charges to the game. Like, that's what happens when you don't give people dental insurance and your husband's a dentist and you offer his services to your employee. So I just kind of forgot about that, but put that in the back of your memory for later. So things continue to grow. She's growing her patient base. The new office is continuing to be built out. And I started having some issues with her medical assistant. Her medical assistant was very weird because she was very nice to me when it was just her and I. But when it was her, her, and the doctor in the office, she would be very short with me and just not very nice. And her and I actually started to have so many issues that the doctor picked up on it and had us go to a mediation session. It was really weird. You know, the medical assistant, basically because I was taking public transportation, and the medical assistant decided that she didn't like me for whatever reason. I don't know if it was a territory thing, if it was a jealousy thing. She told me that next time you're waiting for the bus, I hope that you get hit by a car. You guys, like, that is, I had never had something like that happen to me before. I did not even know how to make sense of that. But once the doctor kind of caught on that there's some weird energy between these two, I did tell her about that situation because it was so hurtful, and I was so young. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions, and it upset me because I felt like, okay, this girl hates me so much that she says, I hope you get hit by a car. I really need this job. And it was just a lot for my mental health at that time, and it would have been a lot for anyone's mental health. The really odd thing is that we went to this counseling session. All the problems kind of went away. Like, I took it upon myself to forgive her if she would stop being a bitch to me, basically. So things kind of got better with that. And we continue to work in the small office space. Other office is still being built out. And then right before we move to the new office space, the doctor hires 2 new people. One is another medical assistant, and the other is another receptionist. I was a little confused because I didn't feel like we had the workload that would require 2 full-time receptionists. But it also wasn't my business, so that was fine. So those 2 new hires happened, and it was probably 2 weeks, and we moved into the new office space. This new office space was very much not what you think of when you think of a dermatology office. This was more like a day spa. Lots of bright colors, you know, bright furniture, white walls, fancy. I don't know, it just wasn't what I would think of when I think of a dermatology office. And I like that, but it was also sort of obnoxious. Either way, we move into this new office. The original medical assistant that I had issues with quit. She had had enough of the doctor. She was having her own issues with the sort of cattiness that was being exposed by the doctor as this office was being built out. And she no longer liked working for the doctor, so she quit. I'm not saying that the senior level person deserves the most respect, but what I was experiencing was the person that I knew had quit, and then I was there with the doctor and the 2 new hires. The 2 new hires were very much making me feel like an outsider, and I don't know if it was something that they were knowingly doing or if it was because I was taking public transportation and they weren't. There were a lot of happy hours that would go on and I was never invited to. They would go get lunch, never offered to take me, and you know, that was fine. I was kind of a loner anyway, and life went on. But then I noticed that the doctor was playing favorites. And it was one thing for me to tune out their little side friendship that they had going on. But once I saw that the doctor was forming friendships with these other 2 staff members and excluding me, that's where I really started to feel like, is this somewhere that I still want to be devoting 4 hours almost of commute time to come here every day when I don't feel like I'm being appreciated? There's minimal room for growth, and I'm still not getting health insurance. I have no benefits, no 401k, no nothing. So I really started to question it, and as time went on, she added a couple other people, medical assistants, and it sort of became this feeling of them versus me. I was always, and I'm not someone who runs around and asks for pity or anything, but I do think that when you own a business, it is up to the boss or the manager or the business owner to make sure that nobody feels excluded. And if you have control of it, why would you not go out of your way to make sure that everyone's being treated fairly and, there's not weird like side friendships going on where you're going to get coffee with these two girls and like I'm left at the office. Like I'm not your personal assistant. Like I shouldn't be left here while you guys run out and get a coffee. It was just the playing field was so uneven, and it really reminded me of back when I was in high school. And I know that I mention this periodically, but there have been a few times in my life where adult situations have happened, and it's taken me back to high school. And working for the dermatologist was definitely one of those times. It felt very much like catty girls just not wanting anything to do with me. And don't get me wrong, there were a couple of perks to working for the dermatologist. I did try Botox for the first time working for her. I got it, I have the 11 lines or whatever, and she injected me. It was actually with Dysport, which is similar to Botox, but she injected me, and she also she used the Fraxel laser on me for my acne scars. So, those were a couple perks that I got during my time working for her. The other thing was I formed a friendship, oddly enough, with one of the pharmaceutical reps. That was, it's the azelaic acid brand name. I'll throw it up here for you guys. That was the company that she worked for, and I was experiencing pretty bad acne for a period of time while I was working for this doctor. And along with going on spironolactone, the pharmaceutical rep would also give me just boxes and boxes of this azelaic acid topical treatment. As far as skin issues, yeah, I would get that covered because I worked for her. But at the same time, being able to cover skin issues doesn't cover all of your health. And I still had no 401k or anything. So either way, yes, there were a couple of perks, but the amount of cattiness and mean girl stuff that I went through while I was there was astronomical. And the one time that I felt comfortable enough to go to her and tell her how I was feeling, I was brushed under the rug. And she said that, basically, well, we'll make sure that, things get better and the office environment is better. And nothing was ever done. So I don't want to keep you guys here all night, but to make a long story short, I made a decision to leave that job. And the way that I went about it was not professional. It was not what I would do today if I was leaving a job, but I had had enough. By that time, there were 5 medical assistants working. There were 2 other office administrative roles working. There was also a nurse practitioner working there. And as more and more people were added to the staff, I just felt like I was phasing into the wall, and I started sending my resume out. And I was getting some hits, and since I was getting some traction, I felt like I could leave this job and have another one within a week. Luckily, I was right on my intuition. But what I did was, one day I was sitting at the front desk. All of them were getting ready to team up and go out to lunch. And it was just one of those days I had had enough, and I walked out. So instead of going out to lunch, I left and never went back. And I got on the bus and I went home. I texted my boyfriend on my way and I said I quit my job, you know, at doctor, whatever. I had had enough. And luckily, one of the resumes that I had sent out the week prior called me the very next day. I was interviewed and I was hired at the next company literally so quickly. It was really amazing that things worked out that way. It could have not worked out that way and I would be telling you guys a different, you know, set of circumstances, but luckily it did work out and I'm so grateful that it did. This doctor's ego was so inflated because she, you know, had this fancy office and, you know, growing her patients and all of these things, that she actually sent me an email a couple days after I quit and told me that she was going to call the DEA on me because of those azelaic acid samples that I had. And the really funny thing is that pharmaceutical rep gave me those samples as samples. It wasn't, you know, in exchange for money. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. They were handed to me from her because she would have like 30 boxes in her car at all times. And it also wasn't a controlled substance, so there wasn't anything weird going on there either. It was just a topical azelaic acid cream. So, you know, this doctor is still practicing today. She's on Instagram and she has bought her followers. You know, now that I'm on this side of things, I can spot fake followers a mile away. And it's just comical to me. She would buy her followers. That's just, I could have guessed that 5 years ago if you asked me. She's just a phony and she cares so much about her bottom dollar and who she's getting pictures taken with at events and cocktail parties. And she doesn't care about anyone but herself. And she forms these fake friendships with her staff and creates a very toxic work environment for the few people that might feel out of the circle. So, you know, she knows that I'm on social media. She might even watch this video. And I don't care. I'm you know, ready to share this story with my audience. I have a platform to do so. And I guess the learning lesson would be, if you are in a toxic work environment where you feel like there is no winning, plan your next steps. Don't wait until you are cracking at your foundation and you want to walk out at lunch one day like I did. Start planning your next steps and use your energy towards figuring out what's next for you, whether it's in the same industry, a different industry, or maybe you have something where you want to work for yourself. Who knows? But don't wait till the last second. And also don't allow anyone to, you know, pacify you like she did me by saying, oh, well, things will get better. And they never get better. You don't care, so you're not gonna make them better. You're telling me that because I'm sitting in your office right now on the verge of tears. So she's a bullshit artist, but I just think it's comical. 10 years later, she's still faking her way through it and buying her followers on Instagram. So good luck to you. You might be watching this, but anyway, that's my story for today. And yeah, hopefully there will be more of these to come. Let me know your thoughts. But for now, if you like the video, please leave a like and a comment. And if you'd like to see more from me in the future, please subscribe. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.